To be clear, when we're talking normal, we're not talking about you. Hi, I'm Darren Rye from 12 Church, and today I'm going to share with you one of the most creative and effective ways I've discovered to go deeper with your friends who need the Lord. Here's the basic idea. When I was in Arrow Leadership Program years ago, one of our instructors, Dr. Gary Davis, gave us a list of questions he called questions for Christians to ask normal people. The idea is that a normal person in our culture is a non-church-going, non-Christian. They're the normal ones. We are the odd ones. And part of the problem is that often in our Christian subculture, we are very out of touch. Even though we're inundated with what we call popular culture, we are out of touch with what our friends really believe and are really thinking about matters of the faith. And so he gave us this list of questions, and we were assigned as a part of our training to interview someone with these questions. I've taken those questions and adapted them a bit for my own usage and the usage of those who I train in personal evangelism. So let's jump into it. 10 questions. If you could summarize Christianity in a sentence or two, how would you summarize it? Or another way of stating it, what do you believe are the basics of Christianity? Now, the answers of your friends might surprise you. It might surprise you how off they are, how odd their beliefs of what Christianity is, or it might surprise you how accurate they are and how much they've really been thinking about it. So ask the question, what do they think Christianity is all about? Do you ever pray? Why or why not? Again, every one of these questions has surprises. It might surprise you how many people pray. Most people pray, it turns out, one way or the other, certainly in crisis, often in decision time. People are at least hoping there's someone out there to help them. What do you think God is like? Again, be prepared for surprises. All kinds of ideas what God is like. A lot of it will be based on their personal experience. Some will be based on how they see Christians acting. A lot will be based on what's going on in the news. But if you have a friend who doesn't know the Lord, it's rather important to know what they believe God is like. In fact, for a lot of us, even believers, we've got to get our head straight about God is like. We've got to have our minds renewed by what Scripture says as opposed to all the funny ideas out there. Have you ever experimented with or looked into the Christian faith? And what was the results of that query? This will give you some idea of whether they've dug in that way or whether they've just looked at other religions. And again, if they've dug into Christianity a bit, it will give you some fodder to work with. If they haven't, you'll know you're starting from a little ways back when it comes to sharing the gospel. If Christianity could offer anything of significance to you, what would you want it to offer? I remember doing this interview with a friend. When I asked that question, he said very clearly and very thoughtfully, inner peace. If Christianity could offer me inner peace, that's really what I'm looking for. And when you find out what your friends are actually looking for on the deepest level, that will help you understand how the gospel interfaces with their deepest, real and felt needs. 5 more questions coming, but let me ask, what are the best questions you found to ask people to uncover what they believe? Please consider sharing in a comment below. What individual Christians have impressed you? And what was it about them that impressed you? They might mention some historical figure, some famous person, or in the case of one of my friends I interviewed, who was a financial planner, he mentioned some of his clients. Not by name, confidentiality, but he mentioned how he had Christian clients and he was so impressed by their generosity. He saw their finances and was so impressed just how free they were with sharing their wealth. That kind of experience goes a long ways towards helping to share the gospel. It's a bridge to the gospel because God is so generous to us. What individual Christians have you met that made you think Christianity was a joke, and what was it about them that made you think this? Unfortunately, a fellow I interviewed had some answers, and some of the people were actually people in the church I was pastoring at the time. Rather unfortunate, a bit of a barrier to sharing the faith. I think it was around that time I developed the duct tape evangelism method, where I would suggest to people, not one-on-one, but in a general sense, that if you're not actually living the Christian life, the most effective thing you can do for personal evangelism is duct tape your mouth shut and don't tell anybody you're a believer, because you're just damaging the cause. What are your main objections to Christianity? Now, this may relate to what they actually believe Christianity teaches, and their objections may be based on false ideas. But again, you'll uncover that as you talk with your friend. What would you change about the Christian faith to make it more acceptable to society? This is an interesting one because we tend to think that what we see in popular culture, what we see in the media, with some of the slant against Christianity, is what a lot of people believe. And what you'll discover is that a lot of what you see in the mainstream media and culture, your friends don't actually believe. They're not buying in. And their objections might be quite different than the objections that are supposedly out there in popular culture. So again, find out what the objections are, because in some cases, their objections might be based on false understandings of the faith and who Jesus is and what he came to do. One more to go, but I encourage you, when you're done watching this video, download the questions. There's a link to download the questions, and then you are assigned to ask these questions. Assuming that God exists, and you could sit down and visit with him face to face over fine dinner, what would you ask him? What would you ask God? I remember a friend of mine, when I asked him that question, got very serious looking and said, I would ask, God, do I need to be afraid of you? Do I need to be afraid of you? And the question people will want to ask God links back to what they believe about God, uncovers where they're at, and gives you then a bridge to the gospel. Again, you are assigned. You can go to your friend and say, hey, I've been assigned to ask these questions. Ask those questions. See what you learn. It will affect the way you pray. It will affect the way you share the gospel. It will make you more effective in being a disciple who makes disciples.